This is the story of two brothers. There is the younger brother, the better brother. I'm a younger brother. There is the younger brother who goes to his father and says, "Father, I would like to go out into the world and make it on my own with nothing but my wits and my skills and the vast fortune that you give me." And his father says, "Okay." And so the younger brother takes this vast fortune and goes out into the world to make it with nothing but his wits and his skills and the vast fortune that his father just gave him. And he spends the vast fortune. At first, it's just a little bit here and there, what you need to live. And then he gets a little cocky, starts spending it on things that maybe he shouldn't be spending it on, starts frittering it away. And after a while, he's down to his last few dollars. And after a while, even that's gone. And it's raining and there's no roof over his head. And his stomach is rumbling and there's no food to be found. So he goes out and does that thing that he doesn't want to do. Oh, he does not want to do it. It is not his style. He goes out and he gets a job. And it's not a good job. I mean, he's working plenty hard, but there's still not a roof over his head. And there's still not food to be found, and his stomach is still grumbling. And he's looking at the pigs that he is keeping and thinking, I would love to eat some of their food, but the pigs won't let him. The younger brother hits rock bottom. And then there's this thing that does not happen. Pete Holmes is a comedian, and he tells the story the way that it doesn't happen. Here's what does not happen. Jesus does not come to the younger brother and say, I can take you home. I can take you back to your father, but your father is an angry man. Your father is a vicious man. Your father believes that you have offended him and that you need to be punished for that. Your father is there with the whip ready to kill you. But if you come back with me, I will go and I will take the punishment. I will die for you. And then you'll be able to go back to your father's estate, and it'll be okay as long as you tell everybody what I did for you. That is not what happens. The younger brother thinks, how many people on my father's estate who are not his sons have bread enough and more to eat? How many people there are okay? I'll go back, and I won't ask to be taken back as a son. That would be too much, but he could maybe give me a job. Then there would be a roof over my head and food in my stomach, and it wouldn't be so bad. I'll go back, I'll get down on my knees, I will beg. Just for the lowest job in the place, so that I can have enough. So he goes back. And while he's still in the distance, his father sees him. And as he's walking up, servants start coming to him with a robe and rings and food and welcome. And as he approaches, his father grabs him in an embrace and says, "My son, you who have been lost have been found. You who are dead have been brought back to life. We are throwing a party because we are so glad that you are here." And this younger brother learns two things. One of them is that he is always welcome home. Then there's the older brother. The older brother did not go out and try to make it on his own with nothing but his wits and his skills and a vast fortune that his father had given him. The older brother stayed home and worked on the estate and did everything that his father asked him. And one day his younger brother left. Fine. And then one day his younger brother came back. Now, the older brother had heard the stories about what the younger brother was up to. And the older brother knew that the younger brother had been up to no good and had hit rock bottom and was ready for this. But as his younger brother approached, his father sent out servants with a robe and with rings. And when his younger brother got up, his father embraced him and said, "Welcome home. You who were lost have been found. You who were dead have been brought back to life. We're going to throw a party." And the older brother thought, I have never had a party. I've never been given a robe, never been given rings, I've never been welcomed like this. I mean, I haven't left, but still, it would be nice to be appreciated. And so, as his dad and his younger brother and the servants and everyone went inside to this party, he stayed outside and huffed. Then his father came out and said, "Why are you huffing? Your younger brother, who was lost, has been found. Who was dead has been brought back to life. Celebrate." And the older brother said, "But I've never gotten this stuff. I have done everything you have asked of me, and I've never had a party. You've never so much as given me $20 for a pizza to have with my friends." And his father said, "Everything that I have is yours. You could have just taken $20. Could have just had a pizza." And the older brother learns two things. And one is that he has always been at home. He has always had access to all of this stuff. While he imagined that he had nothing, he in fact had everything. This entire year since September, we've been doing a set of sermon series, but they've all kind of been one giant sermon series divided into little chapters. We talked about why stories are important and why it matters what stories we tell about God and ourselves and each other and the world. And we talked about how God is love, with no footnotes and no fine print. We talked about how the world is broken, how everything is messed up. We talked about how God came into the world as one of us, the Word become flesh, living a human life, and by living it, redeeming it, restoring it, repairing it, bringing the world closer to what it should be. We talked about the path that God who is love become one of us, that Word who became flesh took. A path that led to a cross and to a tomb and to a resurrection. And how? When Christ stepped out of that tomb, Christ left the brokenness of the world, the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less in that tomb, and brought humanity out. Brought a redeemed world out, brought a restored world out, brought a repaired world out. And now we're to this. The Christ who stepped out of the tomb invites us into a new life. And part of that new life is noticing that the world is not, in fact, what we thought it was. It is not, in fact, nearly as broken as we suspected. It is not, in fact, nearly as under the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less as we thought. We don't have to live that way anymore. We can live in a different way. We who were at rock bottom have been lifted up. We who were lost have been found. We who were dead have been brought back to life. And the question that is before us, a question that I have asked again and again and again, you've heard it before, is, will we live like we are still under the powers of sin and death and everything that makes life less? Or will we live like we have been brought back to life? Like we have come home to God's reign of love that is in us and around us and among us even now, that is not waiting until the end of the world, that is not waiting until after we die, but that is here. And this parable, I think, is about that. There's a genre of ancient literature called apocalyptic. You've seen it in the book of Revelation, an apocalypse. You maybe have even seen it in the book of Daniel. There's a little apocalypse. There are plenty of other ancient books that are little apocalypses. Apocalypti? The plural of apocalypse. And because those things often concern the end of the world, we often think that apocalypse is the same as the end of the world. But it is not. An apocalypse is an uncovering of a truth. It's telling us what the world is really like. And just like today, a lot of authors use science fiction to talk about what is happening now, use the future to talk about what is happening today, use amazing technology to talk about what technology is doing now. Ancient authors used the end of the world to talk about today. And this parable about two brothers is a little bit about what is happening right now. This isn't us waiting for what is happening. This is us noticing what is now. That we can just walk home and be welcomed and loved and celebrated for all that we are. And who wouldn't choose to do that? I said that each of the brothers learned two things. I only talked about one, so let's talk about the other thing. Because this shows us a little bit about what the world is really like. This tells us a little bit about what the world really could be like if we just took the chance, and this is the hard part. This is the thing that I don't have down yet. This is the thing that I don't think any of us have down yet. This is the thing that tells us why we are practicing Christians and not accomplished Christians. The younger brother learns that he can't just take a bit of the world and hold it for himself and expect it to last. Rust will eat it away. Moths will eat it away. Robbers will take it. Eventually he will spend the last penny and be left with nothing. We don't get to grab onto a bit of the world and say, this is mine, and have that last as long as we need it to. The older brother learns a similar lesson, that there is a difference between not having anything and not having everything. But that it is by not having anything that he gains access to everything. Nothing is his, so everything is his. He doesn't have a little bit that's not enough. So there is enough and more than enough. And I know that sounds big and complicated. How can the world look like that? But there is something to the idea of holding on to the world lightly. Of holding on to the bit that has been entrusted to my care lightly. Of being willing to let go when there is greater need somewhere else. And if everybody did that, the world would be a very different place. I firmly believe that if everybody did that, if we learned how to do that, if we figured out how to do that, how to step out of the tomb and into life, there would be no one hungry, no one homeless, no one lonely, no one ashamed, no one left feeling unloved. Because this is God's world. And there is enough and more than enough for everyone. And there is certainly enough and more than enough love for everyone. Because love is one of those magical things, one of those holy things, that the more you give away, the more there is. And maybe when we realize that, when we understand that, when we are willing to step into that, we can truly, honestly be home.